Hi, I'm Amanda Skelton, an independent Snapping Up demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you this spinner card. So if I show you this, so what you can do is you can twist this centre section, and then when the recipient opens it, it spins. And then it's also quite nice when it's actually stood up. I mean, you can do it so that it's flat, but eventually it'll turn around and it just makes it a nice 3D effect when it's actually stood up as well on display in somebody's home. So what we need to do this. So I've made this card with the World of Good bundle. Now I'm doing this at the end of April. This is going to be a retired product, I know that, but the ladies that are doing my workshop are doing this with this bundle, and it's a shame because it's a really nice male masculine bundle. So it's the stamp set and the matching dies that we're going to be using, and the papers are also part of the set as well. So again, they will be discontinued. In fact, I know that they're already out of stock because it's the end of the annual catalogue year. But you could still use this design for other images. You could put, if it's for a child, you could put their age there, a number or a name, or just happy birthday or some balloons. So you could use this for other papers and sweets, but it's mainly you can get the idea of how to make the this style of card. Okay, so what will you need for this? So I've done this image, or this card, I've done this using the cinnamon cider cardstock and the DSP, and I've also used the copper foil card here. But I'm going to do it in a slightly different colourway now for this card, and I'm going to use Misty Moonlight cardstock. Again, this is the DSP paper from the World of Good suite, but again it's going to be discontinued. And I'm going to use gold cardstock for this, a gold foil. It's just that the copper just seems to go really well with this. Doesn't go so well with that, I don't think. It just seems to pick out the gold more, so I think you can go with either, but Stampin' Up do the gold and the copper foil sheets, so you can choose whichever one is best for your design. So what will you need? You'll need your card base, so that's half a sheet of A4 card, so that is about 8 1/4 inches by 5 3/4 of an inch, and that is scored across at halfway, which is 4 1/2 inches. So that's going to be your base. And then a piece of silver foil card, and that needs to be about 3 inches by 6 inches, and we'll see how we can make very efficient use of that for the frame and for the images here. Then you want a piece of DSP, which is going to be slightly bigger than the front of your card, and the reason for that is so that it will give us space to manoeuvre it, so we can make sure it lines up nicely with our cutout aperture there. Okay, so yeah, so that needs to be slightly bigger than your card front. So your card front is going to be about 8 1/4 by 5 3/4, so maybe 8 1/2 by, I don't know, 5 7/8 or something like that. Just needs to be a bit bigger, just so it gives you a little bit of wiggle room when you put it on top of your cutout aperture, because we're going to cut out an aperture here and on here. Unfortunately, we can't stick them both down and do them at the same time because we're going to hide the thread between the two layers. And then you want another piece of cardstock, again to match the card base, so that's Misty Moonlight, and you probably need probably about 3 inches by 6 inches again maybe, and that is for these discs and for your sentiment here. Okay, so where shall we start? Let's start with our card base. So the first thing we need to do is cut out our aperture. So we need our cut and emboss machine. So let me just show you what we're going to do. So this is mostly going to be using the dies from the die set. So we're going to be using, you get this circle, which is the edge to the world maps. So we're going to use that one, and then we're going to also use these two, because I've actually done, so that's North America, South America on one side, and on the other side I've got Africa, Asia and Australia. So I've actually used both sides of that and done one side each of the disc. So we'll want that. So that's what we want from there. And then I'm going to use the Adventure in Weight stamp sentiment from the stamp set. So that's what we're going to use. And what you're also going to do though is you're going to need to make a slightly bigger aperture. Now I've got two dies. So the smaller die is going to make my aperture, and that is about 2 inches diameter. So this isn't a Stampin' Up die, and I don't know if you can see there, you've got the stitch detail. I'm not particularly wanting the stitch detail, but that's what I have, so that's what it's going to be. But if you look here, it is about 2 inches diameter for your cut on the smaller one, which is going to be your aperture. And then to make the frame, you want a slightly bigger die, which is about 2.5 inches diameter. Okay, so that's what you want, roughly about that size. It's not going to be the end of the world if it's slightly bigger, or your frame isn't as wide or is wider. You just need to make sure you've got space so that your spinner section, which is going to be the size of the die within your die set, is going to be able to spin and move. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do then is we're not going to use the die from the die set. We're going to use the smaller of the two circle dies first of all, and I'm just checking that's the right size. It looks bigger. Yeah, so let me get the die machine. Okay, now it's up to you if you want to use tape to keep it in position. I don't normally, but you need to make sure, so that's the front, and you want to make sure that it's roughly, so I'm sort of towards the top because you want to have space for sentiments, and I'm just going to make sure, so that's about 1 inch from that edge and about 1 inch from that edge, so that looks good. So then I'm going to place on, sorry, I'm making the right noise, aren't I, with all the bits and pieces going everywhere. And then if you just place it on from the top, it shouldn't move. Okay, so just place that through. Okay, now you've got a piece of circle you can use later if you want to. So that is our aperture. Now what we need to do now is make our discs and our frames. So if you want to, so the disc for the centre section is going to be the smaller, or the circle that comes within the stamp set, sorry, the die set. And if you want to, you could use that. Which is your offcut from your centre of your disc that you just cut out for your aperture. And then you've got your disc, and then you've got a frame. You can use that, keep that for later. Okay, and then we want to use our extra piece of blue card that I said about to make one more disc, because we're going to have a front and a back. So we're going to have the front disc and the back disc of the background colour, because we're going to put our cord within it to be able to spin it. So again, we just want to, oh gosh, I'm all fingers and thumbs today. So there we have our two discs, and they're going to go back to back, and then they're going to have the spinning mechanism within it, sandwiched within it. Right, so I'll get that in a minute. So the next thing we can do while we've got the the cutting machine out is we can do the frame and we can do the maps. So again, these are the two dies that I said about. So you want the 2 inch and the 2.5 inch diameter dies, and we want our gold cardstock. So I'm not going. You can, if you want to, you can do them both at the same time because they do sit within each other. So you can do that. In fact, I might even do that. But if you're not confident that they're going to stay equidistant to give you a nice equal frame, I'm just trying to get in there to see if that looks okay. I think that looks okay. Then you save yourself a bit of time. So there you have your frame, and then you've got your piece cut out. Again, we're going to be quite thrifty with that, and we're going to let's do another frame. Let's do another frame on here. Again, if you just put the top sheet of your cutting mat on top, it shouldn't move too much. Again, if you want to use something like a low tack tape, you can. So again, there we have our second frame. Put those to the side, and the gold, we finished with that now. So now we've got the 2 cut out discs. Now we don't need those for anything. So what we can do is we can use those for our maps. So you can see, I mean, I'm lucky that it happens to be within the stitched edge here, but again, it wasn't intentional to have a stitched die. The circle dies in the Stampin' Up! Catalogue, they aren't stitched, they're just, well, there's a set that are includes a straight edged set, and there also is a scalloped edge, and that is within the same set, which is quite good value. It's a little bit like the layering dies where you've got the scalloped and the straight edged. So there we have, and again, keep hold of these, you might want to use those for something else. Right, so then we've got these. So I'm going to use my pokey tool. So I've got my sticky end here, which is like putty, and I've got my sharp pointy tool, which we're going to use. So I'm just going to get that out of the die, otherwise it won't cut properly next time. And that one's okay. Right, so we're finished with those dies for now. We're going to put that to one side. And then we're going to, so we've got our frames, and now we just need to poke these out. Now there is also an attachment for this that has got like a brush head on it, and you can put it on a like a foam base and use the brush, and it takes these pieces out a lot quicker than it does one by one. But I've only got 2 of these to do, so I shall treat this as my mindfulness activity and just go with it. So you can see these coming out. Right, nearly there on that one. Okay, that's all of that one. I think one of them might have more bits on than the other, depending on which is east or west of the world. Of the world? Hemisphere even. Oops. So there we go. I think we've got all of those pieces out. So let's just get rid of all these pieces. Okay. So we had our 2 blue discs from before, and these are going to go on top of them like that. Okay, so let's do that, and then they can be sticking while we do the so I'm using glue here because there's a lot of detail. It's quite difficult to use like a glue, a tape, because it ends up going across all the gaps, and you don't want that really. You don't want to see your glue tape on it. Another thing that there is though, Stampin' Up! Do, are adhesive sheets, and what you'd do is you'd stick it onto the back of the gold card, gold foil card, before you cut it, and it sticks to the back of this, and then it's got a protective film that you then take off, so it'll cut exactly the same shape of glue adhesive card. You can also move it around then by using this. You can it'll cut out exactly the same shape as your die cut on the base, on the back of it. Then you peel off the protective film, and then you know that you've got an absolute exact area of glue without it going across all the gaps, which is quite good, especially on detailed things. It's really good for detailed things, but I haven't got any at the moment, so I'm having to go manual with liquid glue. Of course, the thing with liquid glue as well though, it does allow you to have a bit of movement. And don't forget the liquid glue does dry clear, so you just need to press it on, make sure it adheres nicely. Of course that glue does stick to you as well. It is very good at sticking to you, as always. Right, so we're just going to let those dry a minute. Just move those out of the way. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our DSP to go onto the front. So what you want to do is, so that's going to be the front. So this is where it helps, the fact that you've got it slightly bigger. So what you want to do is place it equidistant, so you've got an equidistant border. You can see where the aperture is. So we're going to draw a pencil line around the inside of the aperture. That will help you to guide where you're going to cut. So again, this is the smaller of the 2 circle dies, not the one from the die set. And then what we'll be able to do is use that to know where to place the die. And again, this gives us a bit of wriggle room because it's quite difficult to see the line when your die goes over it. So, yes, we need our die machine again. Let's just always get rid of any bits that are on your cutting mat, because otherwise it will indent into whatever you either emboss or cut on top of it, which you don't want. Okay, so where is my line? I can just about see it. Okay, so it's about there. It's about there, I think. Okay, so again, I'm going to cut this one out. Okay, again, you can keep your cutout disc for something else. Right, again, we can get rid of that one for now. So now we've got our card base and we've got our card front, and you can see that you need a little bit of space just so that if it isn't quite lined up with the exact edges, you have got that extra bit that we can cut off manually afterwards. Okay, right, we won't do anything with that for the minute because we need to first of all do our now if you want, actually what you can do if you want to is you can mark it once you've done that so you know it is going to go on. Just use my paper trimmer. It just might be a little bit easier than doing it once it's in situ. But always make it the size after you've cut your aperture. Like I said, it just gives you that bit of wriggle room. So let me just check that that looks good. That is good from the height. And then I'm going to turn it over. Sorry, I need to get my head in so I can see the line. So that is looking good. If you line the top corner and bottom right edge up, and then you can see you've got a slight edge here. So we're going to take that edge off. Okay. And we've got a colour that's similar to the base anyway, so it's not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't quite. So that should then fit nicely on there. Okay. Right, we can discard that. Okay, so now we have our discs. So now we want to make the spinner mechanism. So this is like a gold thread. Again, I don't think this is available at the moment, but there is something that is going to be quite similar. I think there is another gold and silver braid, I think, which is quite a small one. Or you could use a linen thread, or even just cotton thread. But what you want to do is you want to have 4 lengths of this, or a thickness of 4, to be able to make it a nice strong spinner mechanism. So you want probably about a length of, what's that? Let's see if I can do the maths on this one. So that's about 5 inches. So you probably want about 20 inches because you want to, once you've got your length, then you want to 3, 4. Okay, so that's probably about 20 inches. And then I'm just going to snip off the edge bit there. Okay, so you've got 4 lengths there, if you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just going to put a knot in the middle, just so that they stay close together. Okay, so that's going to go there, and it just keeps them all nice and close together. We can cut off any excess afterwards, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so let me use my silicone so that my glue doesn't stick to everything. Tear and tape glue, or double-sided, sorry, tear and tape is really good for this, or double-sided tape of some kind. You want something that's going to really be strong, or glue dots, but glue dots can add a bit too much thickness sometimes. Because we're going to put these back to back, you don't necessarily want it to have a really big gap in the middle. So you want to make sure that your welds are up the right way. So you want to make sure that you've got that there. And then we're going to cut a piece just short of the full length. So literally just turn it over, flip it over that way, and put your tape down the middle. And we're going to do the same on this one. clip it, put that down the middle, okay? Right, so that looks about right. Now what's going to matter is when we put the, if I've done with it, there it is. What's going to matter is making sure that it's lined up when we put the thread on it. Okay, so this is why I'm doing it on here so it doesn't stick. So I'm going to place that straight-ish if it will move. Okay, so I'm going to hold it nice and straight, got the knot in the middle there, and I'm going to line it up with that centre. Can you see this line down the middle? I'm going to line it up with that roughly. Okay, and then that is stuck on there. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Make sure it's the right way up. So you've got the north, got that there, and again I'm going to, before you do that though, this is what I didn't do last time. What you can do is just use some glue to glue the rest of it up as well. Okay. And then you're going to make sure that is lined up again with your centre. So you need to make sure that your circles are on top of each other nicely, and then make sure that that is. Okay, so you've got that one there, and you've got that one there. Okay, you can see how it spins nicely on there. Okay, and then just give it a good press because you've put the glue on both sides and underneath both discs. So we've done that. What we then need to do is place it within our aperture. Okay, so you want it to do, again, equidistant. You want it to be straight, obviously. Again, I'm going to use the tear and tape. That's a bit long for the top section. So again, so I reckon that's probably about in the middle. I'm just going to use that so I know that that's roughly where the middle of that is. And then I'm going to do the same for the bottom section. So that is about there. Okay. And we'll take your protective edgings off. Again, make sure, so it depends up to you, if you, depends on which part of the hemisphere you live in, whether you want to have, which section you want to have at the front. So I think I'll do this one this side. So if you just, you can see how it's going to sort of typical. Perhaps I'll do it that way this time. Okay, so you want to make sure, place it in the middle, just get hold of both of the sets of string, and then you just want to place it on there so you can see that it's got a gap around it. Okay, then we want to make sure it stays in place. I'm just going to put another piece of tear and tape straight on top of it, and I'm not even going to take the edging off, we don't need to. Just make sure that, now you've got a bit of extra there. Ooh, bit extra there. You can just cut that down, it's not going to go anywhere, it's under tape. And this is going to be behind here, obviously. So now I'm going to just make sure again that this all fits on here. Which it does. Okay. So now I'm going to put glue tape on the back side of position. And you might want to put a little bit around the aperture as well, just so that that adheres to the card base. A little bit there, just for luck. Okay, and then I'm going to place it on this top corner. Actually, I'm going to make sure it's on the aperture. There you go. Look, perfect. Can't see it from behind either. That's good. Okay. And then we have our frame. So we just literally need to glue that. Again, I'm going to use liquid glue. It's just going to give us a bit of wriggle room to be able to make sure it goes into position. Oh, come on, you coming out glue? Yeah. Okay. Again, you just want to place that on the aperture. What you can do is look from behind and make sure if you can see any of the white of the background, then you know that you've overlapped it a little bit. So if it looks good from the front, then it looks good from the back as well. Okay, so you can see how this is going to go nicely. Look. And then we'll put one on the inside as well. Line up with the edge of your aperture. Place it down. Again, look from the front. I can see that it's a little bit low there. So I can see the white edge there, so I'm just going to move it down a bit. There you go, perfect. Okay, got some little edges there on the card that's been cut. There you go, that's better. Okay, so that is the main part of the technique. So you just want to make sure that your surround is pushed down nicely. Okay, so now we just need to do the extra detail. So I've got this sentiment here. So I use the Misty Moonlight cardstock for the card, and I'm going to use the same ink. And even though you're using the same colour ink and card, the ink will always come out darker. So you can use the same and it will still have a really good stamped image. Now I used some of the other elements in here for the inside. I used this feather. I'm not sure I'm particularly liking the feather, so I'm going to do something different on this one, but I quite like the world on it as well inside. So because you've got the spinner, you don't really want to have a full insert like you'd normally have in a normal card. If anything, if your card is too dark to write on, then probably put a piece of white card here or something, or white paper here, just so that's where you'd write your message. But I'd keep the rest of it, maybe add detail around here, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to use this little scroll, and again I'm going to use the Misty Moonlight, and I'm just going to add some scrolls around here. In fact, I think I might do something like that, just add a bit of detail. And then I'm going to use the world map. Make sure you've got something underneath you if you're not going to ink on the full card. So I'm just going to have it just slightly coming off the corner there. It just adds a bit of detail, and then you can write in there. Okay, actually what we want to do now is we want to do our sentiment, don't we? So let's not put the ink away. So I've got the extra piece of blue card that we cut our extra die disc from. So I've got my sentiment here, which is Adventure Awaits, which I think is quite a nice generic one. It could be going off to uni, it could be going on a long holiday, could be retiring. So I'm going to use one of the layering oval dies. So you just need to make sure that it's big enough for your sentiment. So which size is this one? So this is the 2 1/4 inch wide. So you just need to make sure that you've got enough space around your stamped image to cut it out. Okay, so let's get our cutting machine again. Not to centre it. Actually, I'm going to have it slightly lower because then I can just put a scroll on the top and it just ties it into the scroll we've put inside as well. So I think about there's okay. Again, I place it on the top just gently like that. All of that for the minute. Got a bit of dust on it. Okay. And then I'm going to use my scroll again. I'm just going to put that across the top of the sentiment. Just finishes it off nicely, doesn't it? And then all we need to do is stick that onto our card. So I've used, so I'm just going to sort of lay it down. That's not straight, but I'm just going to do that before I press it down too hard. Still not straight. Right, so that's less than an inch. That's an inch. So before you stick it down too hard, you can just move it around a little bit. So that's an inch. That's still a little bit less than an inch. That should be good there. To press it down, and there you go. There we have our spinner card finished. So before you put it in the post, spin it 6 or 7 times, send it like that, then when you open it, it'll spin, and then it'll stand quite nicely as well. You can probably see from the top that stands quite nicely in there, and then you can put whatever detail you want inside. Hope you've enjoyed that. Like I said, it can be used for lots of different types of dies and themes. It doesn't have to be the world, but yeah, so hopefully that shows you a really good technique, really good for kids as well. Just adds a bit of detail, a bit of interest, doesn't it? Hope you've enjoyed it. As always, you can find all the products on my Stampin' Up website, which is amandascraftedcards.stampinup.net, or if you need to contact me at all, I'm on Facebook as Amanda's Crafted Cards. Hope to see you again soon. Hope you've enjoyed the workshop. Thank you. Bye bye.